The Philippines' Big One countdown is accelerating, and the West Valley Fault is now 368 years overdue for a catastrophic rupture that could annihilate Manila. Picture this: 13 million people, living, working, sleeping directly on top of a 100-kilometer crack in the earth that hasn't released its pressure since 1658. That's almost 4 centuries of tectonic stress building beneath schools, hospitals, skyscrapers, and homes. And scientists agree on one terrifying fact: this fault will break. The only question is when. But here's what has seismologists in complete panic right now. In the past 30 days alone, the Philippines has recorded 847 earthquakes. The normal average? 8 to 12. That's 70 times more seismic activity than usual. And each one of those quakes isn't just shaking the ground. It's loading stress directly onto the West Valley Fault, like adding weight to a spring that's already compressed to its breaking point. The recent magnitude 7.4 Mindanao earthquake, the magnitude 6.9 CBU disaster that killed 79 people. These aren't isolated events. They're part of a cascading chain reaction that's funneling energy straight toward the capital. When the West Valley Fault finally snaps, models predict 60 to 90 seconds of violent shaking, over 170,000 buildings destroyed, and a death toll that could exceed 34,000 in a single night. Is the 2025 earthquake swarm the final trigger that unleashes the big one? Or has Metro Manila already run out of time? The West Valley Fault stretches 100 kilometers through the heart of the Philippine capital. It runs directly beneath Quezon City, Makati, Pasig, Marikina, and Muntinlupa. The most densely populated urban corridor in the entire country sits on top of this geological fracture. Over 13 million people live within its immediate impact zone. The fault extends from Bulacan in the north through Metro Manila and into Cavite and Laguna to the south. It cuts through business districts, residential neighborhoods, informal settlements, and critical infrastructure. Schools, hospitals, government buildings, and high-rise towers stand directly above the rupture zone. Every structure faces the same threat. Historical records reveal a disturbing pattern. The West Valley Fault ruptures on a cycle of 400 to 600 years between major events. The last confirmed rupture occurred in 1658. That was 368 years ago. By any geological measure, this fault is dangerously overdue. PHIVOLCS. Scientists project the inevitable rupture will generate a magnitude 7.2 earthquake or higher. Ground shaking will last between 60 and 90 seconds. The fault could displace the Earth's surface by up to 4 meters in some locations. Buildings, roads, and bridges will face forces they were never designed to withstand. Understanding what overdue means requires thinking about how faults accumulate. Energy. Imagine a massive spring being compressed year after year. Each day that passes without release adds more tension to the system. The longer the interval between ruptures, the more energy builds. And that energy has nowhere to go except out. For 368 years, tectonic forces have been loading stress onto the West Valley Fault. The Philippine sea plate continues pushing. The pressure continues building. The fault remains locked. Every year without rupture means more stored energy waiting for release. PHIVOLCS. Director Renato Solidum has been clear in his warnings. The West Valley Fault will move. This is not speculation. It is geological certainty. The earthquake will happen. The only unknown is the exact timing, but the data suggests the window is narrowing, and 13 million people remain directly in the path of what scientists describe as an inevitable catastrophe. The Philippines does not simply sit on fault lines. It is the fault line. The archipelago occupies the most complex tectonic intersection on the planet. 4 massive plates converge beneath the 7,641 islands in a collision zone unlike anywhere else on Earth. The Philippine Sea Plate dives eastward beneath the archipelago. The Pacific Plate shoves westward with relentless force. The Eurasian Plate presses down from the north. The Sunda Plate pushes up from the south. These 4 giants meet directly beneath Philippine territory. The result is a geological pressure cooker where stress has nowhere to dissipate. Compare this to other seismically active regions. Japan faces interactions between two plates. California sits along a two-plate boundary. The Philippines deals with four. The complexity multiplies the danger exponentially. Energy builds from every direction simultaneously, and that energy must eventually release. The only questions are where and when. For centuries, this unique configuration created a predictable rhythm. The Philippines typically experiences around 100 measurable earthquakes yearly. Roughly 20 cause significant damage. Quakes occur every few days, releasing tension gradually in isolated events with regional impacts. The pattern was consistent. Scientists could anticipate the general frequency, even if they could not predict specific events. But 2025 has shattered that pattern completely. The rhythm that held for generations has broken. What was predictable has become chaotic. What was manageable has become alarming. The archipelago functions as an interconnected stress distribution network. Major fault systems, including the West Valley Fault, East Valley Fault, Philippine Fault Zone, and Manila Trench, do not operate independently. They connect through mechanical stress transfer. When one fault moves, others respond. Dr. Deo Carlo Lamas at the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology describes it as a heartbeat pulsing beneath the entire archipelago. Each earthquake relieves tension in one location, but simultaneously redistributes stress to neighboring systems. The process never truly ends. Pressure shifts, but never disappears. And right now, that pressure is building faster than anyone anticipated. The heartbeat is accelerating. September 2025 delivered the first major warning. A magnitude 6.9 earthquake struck Cebu with devastating force. At least 79 people died. Buildings collapsed across the Visayas region. Emergency responders scrambled to rescue survivors from the rubble. The disaster shocked the nation. But it was only the beginning. 10 days later, the situation escalated dramatically. On October 17th, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake slammed into Mindanao. Within hours, a magnitude 6.9 aftershock followed. Scientists call this a doublet earthquake. Two major events occurring in rapid succession from the same fault system. The phenomenon is rare. The implications are terrifying. At least 10 people died. Over 1,000 suffered injuries. Communities that survived the first shock faced destruction from the second. The statistics reveal an unprecedented escalation. In the past 30 days alone, the Philippines has recorded 847 earthquakes. The normal monthly average ranges from 8 to 12. That represents more than a 70-fold increase in seismic activity. Microquake activity has more than doubled compared to previous years since January. The numbers are staggering and climbing. But the frequency alone does not capture the true danger. What alarms scientists most is the pattern emerging from advanced monitoring systems. These earthquakes are not isolated incidents. Each event loads stress onto neighboring fault systems in a synchronized sequence never before documented. PHIVOLCS analysis reveals something unprecedented. The earthquake swarm is creating a mechanical connection spanning the entire Western Pacific. Energy from each tremor does not simply dissipate, it transfers. Dr. Deo Carlo Lamas explains the phenomenon clearly. Each quake relieves tension in one area, but simultaneously redistributes stress to neighboring faults like a chain reaction. The process creates a cascading effect. Pressure released in Mindanao shifts toward the Visayas. Stress from Cebu propagates toward Luzon. Every earthquake pushes energy closer to Metro Manila. The West Valley Fault sits at the end of this chain. It absorbs cumulative stress from the entire swarm. Each tremor across the archipelago adds pressure to a system already 368 years overdue for catastrophic release. When an earthquake strikes, the energy does not stay local. It propagates through the Earth's crust at 8 kilometers per second. Stress waves race outward, physically pushing on distant fault lines and fundamentally changing their stability. Scientists call this process Coulomb stress transfer, and it explains why earthquakes in Mindanao threaten Manila. Most people assume earthquakes are isolated events. Energy releases, the shaking stops, and the danger passes. But that is not how the planet works. Seismic energy from one earthquake literally loads pressure onto neighboring fault systems. The phenomenon has been documented repeatedly throughout history. The 1992 Landers earthquake in California triggered quakes across multiple American states. The 2004 Sumatra tsunami affected fault systems across the entire Pacific Basin. The 2012 Indian Ocean magnitude 8.6 earthquake created cascading perturbations that reached Japan. The science is proven. The mechanics are understood. The implications are terrifying. What makes 2025 different is the speed and scale. Previous stress transfer events took days or weeks to propagate across fault networks. The current patterns are happening in minutes to hours. 7 major fault systems are responding simultaneously to Philippine earthquake activity. Coordinated seismic movement on this scale has never been documented in scientific history. Dr. Ross Stein from the United States Geological Survey describes the situation as earthquake clustering on an international scale. The Philippines is not just triggering local events. It is mechanically connected to fault systems spanning the entire Western Pacific. The direct connection to the West Valley Fault grows clearer with each tremor. The Manila Trench shows dangerous pressure accumulation. The Philippine sea plate boundary experiences elevated seismic background activity. Each Mindanao earthquake loads pressure onto Luzon fault systems. Each Visayas aftershock pushes energy northward. The West Valley Fault absorbs cumulative stress from the entire swarm. It functions as the terminal point in a cascading chain of pressure transfer. Every earthquake across the archipelago adds weight to a system already compressed beyond historical limits. The domino effect is not theoretical, it is measurable, and the dominoes are falling toward Manila. The moment the West Valley Fault ruptures, Metro Manila faces 60 to 90 seconds of violent shaking. Ground acceleration will exceed the design limits of most buildings. Liquefaction will transform reclaimed land and low-lying areas into unstable soil that swallows structures whole. The destruction will unfold faster than anyone can react. PHIVOLCS and Metro Manila Development Authority estimate catastrophic structural damage. Over 170,000 buildings will be damaged or destroyed. High-rises in Makati and Bonifacio Global City face collapse risks from forces they were never engineered to withstand. Informal settlements housing millions in densely packed slums will experience near-total devastation. Schools filled with children, hospitals packed with patients, government buildings coordinating emergency response, all sit directly in the rupture zone. Infrastructure will fail in cascading sequence. Bridges and elevated highways will collapse, cutting evacuation routes. The MRT and LRT systems will suffer catastrophic damage, stranding millions. Water mains will rupture, flooding streets while leaving survivors without drinking water. Gas lines will break, triggering fires that spread through collapsed neighborhoods. The power grid will fail across Metro Manila, plunging the capital into darkness. The Japan International Cooperation Agency conducted detailed casualty modeling. Their worst-case projections estimate over 34,000 deaths. Injuries will exceed 100,000. More than 1 million people will be displaced from destroyed homes. Secondary deaths from fires, disease, and lack of medical care will continue for weeks. The first 72 hours will become a nightmare of compounding crises. Hospitals will be overwhelmed or destroyed. Emergency responders will be unable to reach victims trapped beneath rubble. Traffic gridlock on damaged roads will prevent evacuation. Water and food shortages will begin within hours as supply chains collapse. The economic devastation extends beyond calculation. Metro Manila generates 36% of Philippine GDP. Business district destruction will cripple the national economy. Recovery timelines will be measured in decades, not years. When the West Valley Fault breaks, it will not simply damage a city. It will fundamentally reshape the Philippines in 90 seconds of destruction that generations will struggle to rebuild. PHIVOLCS operates a monitoring network spanning the Philippine archipelago. Seismic stations continuously track ground movement. Real-time data analysis detects earthquakes within minutes of occurrence. The system represents decades of scientific investment and technological advancement. But against the West Valley Fault, these capabilities face a fundamental limitation that no technology can overcome. Stress waves travel through the Earth's crust at 8 kilometers per second. This speed outpaces every human response system ever designed. Seismic detection requires 2 to 3 minutes to analyze earthquake data. Tsunami modeling needs 5 to 10 minutes to calculate wave arrival times. International communication takes 10 to 15 minutes for multi-country alerts. Public warning systems require 15 to 30 minutes to issue evacuation orders. For a fault running directly beneath Metro Manila, these timelines become meaningless. When the West Valley Fault ruptures, the shaking begins before any warning can be issued. 13 million people will have essentially zero advance notice. The earthquake arrives before the alert. Current warning infrastructure faces 4 critical limitations. Each country monitors its own fault systems independently with minimal international coordination. Tsunami simulations assume single earthquake sources rather than cascading events. Communication delays prevent rapid multi-country alerts. Data processing systems cannot handle simultaneous seismic input from multiple sources. The tsunami threat compounds these challenges. Manila Bay remains vulnerable to waves generated by Manila Trench earthquakes. If multiple fault systems rupture in sequence, their tsunamis could combine through wave superposition, creating amplified destruction. Current warning systems were never designed for such complex. The infrastructure reality is staggering. Across 7 Pacific countries, 500 million people live within tsunami evacuation zones. No protocols exist for simultaneous multinational disasters. Evacuation capacity was designed for single-country events, not cascading regional catastrophes. Dr. Katsuichiro Goda from the University of Bristol warns that cascading earthquake hazards represent a new class of disaster that current monitoring infrastructure simply cannot handle. We need to completely rethink warning systems for the age of stress transfer. The technology designed to save lives was built for a different era. The threats have evolved. The systems have not. PHIVOLCS has intensified monitoring of the West Valley Fault to unprecedented levels. Scientists maintain 24-hour surveillance of seismic activity along the entire 100-kilometer rupture zone. New monitoring stations have been deployed across Metro Manila. Stress accumulation tracking continues around the clock. Public awareness campaigns warn residents about the inevitable earthquake. The scientific community is doing everything possible within current capabilities, but critical preparedness gaps persist throughout Metro Manila. Building code compliance remains inconsistent across the metropolis. Many structures were built before modern seismic standards existed. Informal settlements housing millions offer zero earthquake resistance. Evacuation routes pass through areas that will become impassable after major structural collapses. Emergency supply stockpiles fall far short of what 13 million people will need. Community-level initiatives provide some hope. Barangays conduct regular earthquake drills to familiarize residents with emergency procedures. Families develop emergency plans identifying safe meeting points. Schools teach children the duck, cover, and hold technique. Government campaigns encourage every household to prepare go bags with essential supplies. These efforts save lives, but they cannot prevent the destruction. Experts agree on what must change. Building retrofitting programs need massive expansion to strengthen vulnerable structures. Residents in highest risk zones require relocation options before disaster strikes. International coordination must improve to handle cascading disasters affecting multiple countries simultaneously. Investment in early warning technology needs to accelerate despite the fundamental speed limitations. The psychological burden weighs heavily on Manila's residents. 13 million people live with daily uncertainty about when their world will shake apart. Officials must balance raising awareness against creating panic. The challenge of preparing for something inevitable but unpredictable tests every community. The race against geological time continues with every passing day. Each earthquake in the ongoing swarm accelerates the timeline. Each tremor loads additional stress onto the West Valley Fault. No technology exists that can prevent the rupture. Only preparation can determine how many survive when it comes. The window for action is closing. The fault does not wait. The pressure continues building, and 13 million people remain directly in its path. The West Valley Fault will rupture. This is not speculation. It is not fear-mongering. It is geological certainty, backed by centuries of seismic data and the unanimous agreement of every scientist who has studied the system. The fault has ruptured before. It will rupture again. The only unknown is the exact moment when 368 years of accumulated tectonic stress finally exceeds the rock's ability to hold. When that moment arrives, 60 to 90 seconds will reshape the Philippines forever. Over 170,000 buildings will collapse or suffer catastrophic damage. More than 34,000 people could die in the initial shaking alone. 1 million residents will lose their homes. The economic heart of the nation will be devastated in less time than it takes to boil water. The 2025 earthquake swarm has transformed this threat from distant possibility to imminent danger. In 30 days, 847 earthquakes have shaken the archipelago. That is 70 times the normal frequency. Each tremor loads additional stress onto fault systems already compressed beyond historical limits. The magnitude 7.4 Mindanao earthquake, the magnitude 6.9 Cebu disaster, the devastating doublet that killed and injured over 1,000 people. These are not isolated events. They are dominoes falling in sequence toward Metro Manila. The science of Coulomb stress transfer proves that earthquakes do not respect borders or boundaries. Energy released in Mindanao propagates northward through the crust at 8 kilometers per second. Pressure shifts from the Visayas toward Luzon. The West Valley Fault absorbs cumulative stress from every tremor across the archipelago. It sits at the end of a cascading chain reaction that grows more dangerous with each passing day. Current warning systems cannot save people from a fault beneath their feet. The shaking arrives before any alert can be issued. 13 million residents will face the earthquake with essentially zero advance notice. Preparation is not optional. It is the only factor that will determine survival when the ground begins to move. The lessons of this moment extend far beyond Philippine borders. Scientists now recognize that fault systems across the Western Pacific are mechanically connected. An earthquake in one country can trigger disasters in others within minutes. The era of isolated seismic events has ended. We have entered the age of cascading disasters that move faster than human response systems can handle. For the families living above the West Valley Fault, these scientific realities translate into daily uncertainty. Parents wonder if their children's schools will withstand the shaking. Workers question whether their office buildings meet safety standards. Residents in informal settlements know their homes offer no protection. 13 million people carry this weight every day while the pressure beneath them continues to build. The countdown accelerates with every tremor. The stress accumulates with every passing hour. The fault remains locked, storing energy that will eventually release with catastrophic force. When will the West Valley Fault finally break? Will the 2025 earthquake swarm prove to be the final trigger? And when 13 million people face 90 seconds of destruction with zero warning, how many will survive because they prepared for the inevitable? The ground beneath Manila holds those answers, and it is not waiting for anyone to be ready.